Welcome back to the channel True Believers of Jesus. Thank you for returning. Today, I'd like to tell you a story about King Solomon, the wisest man. Are you ready? Here we go. King Solomon was the son of King David and Bathsheba. The Bible refers to him as the wisest man and also the richest man on earth. It is said that there will never be another man as rich as King Solomon. Now, Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Solomon was the third king of Israel. He built the first temple in Jerusalem. God appeared to Solomon in a dream at night. God said, "Whatever you ask, I shall give you." Solomon asked God for wisdom and understanding, discernment for good and evil to govern his people. God was pleased of what Solomon asked for. God said unto Solomon, "I will give you what you asked for, and what you have not asked for. I will give you great riches and honor so that no other king shall compare to you for all your days. If you walk in my ways and keep in my statute and commandments as your father David, I will lengthen your days." Solomon woke up from the dream, went to Jerusalem, stood before the covenant of God, and offered up burnt offerings and peace offerings, and made a feast for all his servants. Then two women came before Solomon. One woman said, "My king, this woman and I live in the same house. I gave birth to a child." Then the third day, this woman also gave birth to a child, and we were alone. There was no one else with us in the house, only she and I. When this woman's son died in the night, because she lay on him and suffocated him, she rose at midnight and took my son from beside me while I was sleeping and laid him on her breast. She then laid her dead son at my breast. When I arose in the morning to nurse my child, behold, he was dead. When I looked at him closely, he was not my child that I gave birth to. The other woman screamed, "No, the living child is mine. The dead child is yours." The other women said, "No, the dead child is yours, and the living child is mine." They went back and forth with each other, arguing about the dead child and living child. "Your son is dead. My son is alive." King Solomon said, "Bring me a sword." So a sword was brought to the king. He said, "Divide this living child in two. Give half to one and half to the other." Then one woman said to King Solomon, "O my lord, give the child to her, and by no means put him to death. This was truly the mother who the living child belongs to." But the other woman said, "He shall neither be mine or yours. Divide him, O Lord." Then King Solomon said, "Give the living child to the first woman. By no means put him to death. She is the mother. A true mother would rather give up her son than to have him killed." When all of Israel heard of this judgment that the king had rendered, they stood in awe of the king. They knew that the wisdom of God was in him to do justice. God gave King Solomon an understanding beyond measure, and King Solomon built the temple for God, and he offered burnt offerings, peace offerings, grain, gold, sacrificial offerings to God. There was nothing too good that he did not offer to God. King Solomon outshines all the kings of the earth in riches and wisdom. The whole earth sought to be in his presence to hear his wisdom, which God had put into his mind. Every one of them brought him gifts of silver, gold, garments, spices, myrrh, horses, mules, and so much more. And this was done year by year. It has been said King Solomon was so generous toward his servants. You could not tell prince and princesses from servants apart. They all dressed up in beautiful apparel. Solomon was so loved by God that he appeared to him and gave him visions and great blessings. Later on, King Solomon took wives that the Lord forbid him to take. King Solomon fell from grace. In the beginning, he was doing the right thing, and was doing so well he found favor with God at one time, but then fell from grace because he loved his wives. and they taught him to worship their false gods. He was a man of love, as you can see in Songs of Solomon. He also wrote Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. Altogether, he wrote 3 books of the Bible. King Solomon was a great advisor to other kings and queens, princes and princesses that sought him out for his knowledge and wisdom. King Solomon reigned for 40 years before he died. He was a good king. He loved his people and his servants. There was not one servant who went hungry into his kingdom. Each day this was what was cooked in King Solomon's kingdom: 185 bushels of flour, 375 bushels of meal, 10 fatted oxen, 20 cattle, 100 sheep, deer, and other foods. King Solomon had workers in the thousands. He loved many women, including foreign women which God did not approve of, because they worshiped false idols. King Solomon allowed his wives to turn him away from God and turn his heart to their false god. Solomon began to worship his wives' false idols, and the Lord was angry with him. His heart was turned away from God. God had appeared to King Solomon twice and commanded him not to worship these other gods. Therefore the Lord said to King Solomon, "Since this is your practice, and you have not kept my covenant and rules, I will surely tear the kingdom from you, and will give it to your servant. But because of your father King David, I will not do it while you are alive, but I will tear it down out of the hand of your son. However, I will not tear away all of the kingdom. I will give one tribe to your son because of David my servant, and for the love of Jerusalem." God gave King Solomon blessings beyond measure: wisdom, knowledge, understanding, riches and honor, gold and silver. There was nothing Solomon did not have. Yet he turned his heart away from God and worshipped his wives' false idols. He even built them altars for sacrifice, worship, and offerings. King Solomon died of natural causes. If King Solomon was alive today, he would have been worth over $2.5 trillion.